Hello, my name's Eve. Welcome to the channel, and today I'm starting a new show called Atari Update. This is basically my version of Atari Newsline, or um what's it? I can't remember what retro Rich's one is, but for those of you who don't know, I obviously cover Atari quite a lot. I also have an investment in Atari. I do have stock in Atari, so I want to obviously address the news around Atari in a way that I feel like I can talk to people and obviously give my thoughts on it as someone who's got a different perspective as an investor and as someone who's actually quite young compared to others in the community. Because I know a lot of people in the community are in their 40s and 50s. I'm not even 20 yet, so I think I'll have an interesting perspective on this. So today we're going to be talking about Night Dive. Made a recent Night Dive's CEO made a recent comment about Atari. Atari's on the rise, and we want to be part of that. Now, obviously, for those who don't know, I did send this article to Ballistic Coffee Boy. He's obviously already addressed it on his Atari Newsline. So let's have a look at this article. Although he read the PC Gamer article, just a short version, I'm reading full gaming.biz article. So we might be here for a while, guys. And make sure you got a nice cup of coffee. You sit down, cozy up, nice pillow. Do you whatever whatever you're gonna do. We're gonna have a look. So Tyler regarded remaster and remake specialist on its decision to sell to Atari. This is written by Christopher Dring, head of games B2B, whatever B2B means. Okay, let's see. Of all news that came out of this year's bumper GDC, there was one story that stood out to me personally: Night Dive being acquired by Atari. As a person of a certain age, I am very fond of Night Dive. They have made a plethora of excellent remasters of 1990s video games. These include famous names such as Quake, Doom, and Turok, and some lesser known games such as Power Slave and Shadow Man. Now, from this list that he's just given these 5 games, do note that Quake and Doom aren't owned by Night Dive, they are owned by Microsoft, because Microsoft bought Bethesda, who may own these games, so just putting it out there. Night Dive's track record isn't flawless, but it gets things right most of the time. And I was a little concerned here that it hitched itself to Atari. The iconic games brand isn't exactly held in high regards today. In recent years, it's mostly been in the headlines for blockchain and Web3 initiatives or for hotels. It has scaled back a lot of that stuff now, but this is a reputation for constantly shifting its strategy and not actually releasing anything significant. See, I'll admit, I do agree a bit here. Atari isn't really the brand it once was, in my opinion. They used to be a powerhouse in gaming, and now they're sort of like they're trying to peddle crypto coins and NFTs, which isn't really the best because that's very volatile. Like those markets aren't stable at all, And if you've watched the YouTube Coffee Seller, you'll know how many influencers get caught out by scamming their fans by promoting coins to them. They buy it, they pump it, and then after like say like 12 hours and they dump all the coins, and the influencer makes thousands or millions whilst their fans lose all their money, which is just scummy, just really scummy, and I don't understand why it's not regulated. My initial response was, oh really, Atari, admits Evelyn Mansell, who is one of the leads of Nightlift's upcoming System Shock Remake. I'm a lot more comfortable with it now. Everything that Wade Rosen, Atari CEO, and Atari has said so far has been on the money. I'm not worried about it. Yeah, considering that Wade Rosen's actually an early investor in Night Dive. He owned 13% of the company, so to me, it's just sort of like him merging 2 brands that he had control over, because he also has like a 30% stake in Atari. Right. There's a misconception that we've just chained ourselves to a sinking ship, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Stephen Kick, Night Dive. That is very true. Atari, for those who know, is losing money. Still, they did lose about €6 million last year, but they are looking at trying to end their losses, and obviously Night Dive is profitable. Night Dive makes about $3 million a year, so this could be one big step on obviously making Atari profitable. Likewise, it's just smart decision because Night Dive has the talent, has the tools. They could be great for Atari. Night Dive CEO Stephen Kick adds, Wade is fresh blood in the Atari vein, and he brings with him an unparalleled knowledge of and love for classic games, which is rarely seen in the industry. It's going to sound cliche, but he gets it. He understands why Atari was so important to so many people, and he understands that he needs to do to elevate it back up to that level that it was previously enjoyed. See, I agree with this. I don't technically know what Wade Rosen's like as a person. I've never met him. I've never spoken to him. But I will say that with this comment here, it does show us a bit of an understanding, especially considering the industry itself doesn't really bother with classic games. I mean, besides a few companies like I think Sega, Nintendo, Namco, and Capcom, no one else really re-releases their old games. Like anything before like the 90s is just not re-released by most of these companies. or remastered or remade, and it's just kind of sad. There's a misconception with this acquisition that the acquisition happened that we had basically chained ourselves to a sinking ship, but it couldn't be further from the truth. They're on the rise here again, and we want to be part of that. Wade is the X factor here, and we're going to see some amazing things come from this company. It's overdue. Yeah. Rosen's worked with Night Dive for a while as an outside investor. Told you guys, helping the company acquire IP and expand its team. After he had become the Atari CEO and started changing the underlying foundation of Atari towards something more game-centric, that's when we became interested in joining forces. We wanted to help them reach the prominence of being the name where it comes to retro games, remasters, and that type of thing. It was a perfect fit for us. Kickstarter's deal doesn't change what Night Dive will be working on. They're not being brought in to purely restructure old Atari IP. I'll argue that they will probably do a lot of work for Atari IP now that they're owned by them. You know, stuff like maybe a new Bubsy game or something, I don't know. But, like, it'll be interesting to see what comes. We're going to work on things that interest us, shooters mostly from the 90s into the early 2000s. It's not going to limit who we are either. Part of what we had to do was go to all our licensors and partners and that we work with to let them know ahead of time about the acquisition, and everyone was just very enthusiastic and supportive. Yeah, but they're working on a load of shooters. That's good because Atari's never really been big in first-person shooters. Like Atari, I don't even think Atari even owned any first-person shooters until this deal, which is kind of crazy considering how big a genre that is. Night Dive has some big partners such as Bethesda, but is also known to work on much smaller projects too. Kick likes to pick up obscure titles, dust them off, and introduce them to a new audience. Last year's Power Slave X-Human is a remaster of a largely forgotten Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation game, for example. Now with a big parent company involved, does that mean an end to these more unusual releases? I'd probably say not. Like, I know this article continues, but obviously, in my opinion, I don't think it's going to be, it's going to be a stopping of that, because obviously Atari wants a huge retro library. They already have a huge retro library, but they also want to sort of see what they can make into new franchises that last today and like people still buy today. So hopefully, if they can like do the right obscure titles, they'll be fine. Definitely not Kick responds empathetically. We have some announcements coming up. Actually, I wish I could share them with you, but they will put that. They will put that question to rest. There's a bunch of really obscure 1990s FPS games that we're working on, which will surprise a lot of people. One in particular that will make people go, "What the hell is that?" Laughs. Yeah, that's good because obviously Night Dive obviously understands what they're doing. They have the talent. They have the knowledge to do what they do. They have the Kex engine, which is a great engine for retro remasters. Yeah, I have faith in these guys. Not ever evolving beyond its role as a remaster specialist, its next game, out later this month, is a remake of the classic System Shock. The game has gone through a few iterations, and it's been a painful journey for the team, but the project is now out in its very final stages. Remakes are a different skill to remaster, and Kick says the success of System Shock will determine whether it keeps investing in this area. Just so you know, guys, before we continue the last bit, I do have a stutter. So if it does sound like I'm struggling with certain words, I have a stutter and I am dyslexic, so just try not to mock me too much in the comments. We spent considerable time on System Shock, and with it came a high cost to put Night Dive in a difficult situation. The entire acquisition doesn't have anything to do with our overall course. He explains what will determine that more than anything with the success of System Shock. We spent a considerable amount of time developing this game, and while it came at a high cost, that has put Night Dive in a difficult situation over the last couple of years. Depending on how well that game does will determine whether we decide to do another on this scale. I hope it does really well, because obviously System Shock's like an iconic franchise. Everyone knows System Shock. It's one of the OG first-person shooters. You know, it helped inspire so many great games today. But yeah, I just don't know. Hopefully it sounds well, because obviously what's kind of weird as well is this game's not being published by Atari at the minute. It's being published by someone else, but I assume Atari's going to get the rights back after this acquisition closes. I don't know. Right. That isn't to say we aren't going to do another one that it would just take as long or it would cost as much. I think we've learned a lot and we've worked hard on vetting our personnel and making sure they're the right people for the job moving forward. Say hypothetically we were to do another one, it would take probably a quarter of the time of what we spent on System Shock and hopefully a quarter of the budget. Yeah, that's a good thing as well with gaming. You want to make games cheaper and faster, so you can obviously sell more and obviously make more money to make more games and more high level stuff. And as well as, it was our first big game project, so there was a bit of a learning process on the tech side, finding pipelines and best practices and all that stuff. We will definitely take the foundation onto whatever we do next, whether it's a big remake or a small update of an older game or our own IP. It depends what Steven wants to do. Oh, sorry, Steve. Kick adds, it's not really up to me anymore. There are a lot of people that will hear a voice in what have a voice in what we do, especially with the Shock teams finishing up. Even if the team does decide to focus on remaster of the System Shock, doesn't mean the company is scaling back its ambitions. One of the big reasons behind the decision to sell to Atari is the possibility of attracting bigger partners and different games than it could as an independent. Despite its critical success, there are still projects that Night Dive misses out on. In fact, the company publicly admitted it pitched to develop a GoldenEye remaster but was rejected. That's a yikes. GoldenEye is huge. Sometimes with a larger company like Nintendo, you need to go your foot in the door on the development side, Kick said. And typically you start with something much more than say GoldenEye. We worked really hard to pull together a compelling pitch from Nintendo and Microsoft with GoldenEye, and there were some contractual obligations, I believe, that prevented them from going that route. Often the reason that they can't do a project is due to financial restrictions or licensing complexity, and Kick says that's something Atari can help with. We now have the financial backing to spread our rings, so to speak, and realise the full potential of what Night Dive can do, he says. And that's the most exciting thing for us, because as good as our games are, we have been, there is always room to make them better, especially with these types of games we tackle. There are some famous games from our history that have just been prohibitive for a number of reasons, whether that's because been licensing complexity or financial, that will hopefully be cleared up. Maybe we will finally see No One Lives Forever as a result of this. That's my hope. It would be a dream to come true, not only for us, but any of our fans who have been following Night Dive for this long. Kick says Atari will continue to make funds available to Night Dive so it can expand the team and thus take on more projects. There was one of the primary goals to keep growing the team, as we have done on Quakes and Dooms. We have become this go-to when it comes to remaster of this type, and it's nice not to have to go out and sell Night Dive anymore. The work is coming to us, which is what we have always wanted, but this comes to the pressure of how do we take on all these projects. Atari is going to play an integral role in building up our teams and making sure we have the personnel to do as much as we can. Any concerns I had about Night Dive's new home before the interview were largely gone by the end. Manzo talks positively about the early reception from Packers to System Shock, calling it a huge morale boost for the team, and Kick clearly has no intention of stopping what Night Dive has been doing all along. The advantages, I think that's supposed to say advantages, where it says advantages, which I'm not sure if that's even a word. Part of our business model is that there are always games that are going to need the remastering treatment, or are going to need to be remade because time is linear. Because when we started up, Resident Evil 4 was only a couple of years old, and now we've had a number of remasters and remake. There's work to be done. Yeah, so my thoughts on this is actually pretty good. The fact that obviously the CEO of Night Dive is saying good things, and then saying that Atari is not sinking ship. Atari is coming back, which is good, because obviously, as someone who's got an investment in Atari, I do understand that Atari has lost like €6 million last year, roughly. I'm rounding up because obviously there's like 0.3 million euro, 0.3 million that they didn't lose, but obviously everyone rounds the nearest million. But yeah, to me it's pretty good. It's good that Atari is on its way back, and I'm looking forward to what to see in the future. Anyway, guys, if you're new, make sure to check out any more other content. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, comment, turn notifications. Let me know your thoughts about this format, and yeah, I'll see you next one. Peace.